You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You've just trained yourself for years to hesitate, to overthink, to seek comfort, to avoid discomfort at all costs. And the result? You move through life in slow motion. You start things, but rarely finish. You dream big, but act small. Not because you don't care, but because you don't believe you can handle the pressure. But let me ask you something. Where did that belief come from? Who told you that you weren't capable? Who convinced you that effort wasn't worth it unless it led to perfection? Because here's the truth most people avoid. You weren't born unmotivated. You were just conditioned to play small. Conditioned by fear, by failure, by watching others succeed while you stood still. So now, when you think about taking action, you freeze. Not because you don't want it, but because you've never been taught how to push through the friction. You think discipline is for those people, the athletes, the overachievers, the 5 a.m. crowd. You've told yourself a story that you're different, that you're somehow less. But that story, it's a lie. One you've repeated so often it feels like truth, but it's not. The truth is this: discipline isn't a personality trait, it's a skill. And just like any skill, it's trainable. The problem is, you've spent years training the wrong muscle. You've trained avoidance. You've trained excuses. You've trained comfort. Every time you hit snooze, every time you scroll instead of starting, every time you promise yourself tomorrow, you're reinforcing a habit, a neural pathway, a muscle memory. But here's the good news. Habits can be unlearned. Pathways can be rewired. And you? You can retrain your entire operating system. It starts with tiny, deliberate choices. Not massive overnight changes, not motivation, just movement. Start showing up for 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. Start keeping the promises you make to yourself, even the small ones. Because that's how confidence is built. Not from results, but from consistency. You're not going to wake up one day suddenly transformed. You're going to build it, one rep at a time, just like a muscle, just like a mindset. And yes, it'll be boring. Yes, you'll want to quit. Yes, you'll wonder if it's even working. But over time, you'll change. Quietly, gradually, powerfully. Not because someone saved you, but because you stopped waiting to be saved. Because eventually, you get tired of your own excuses. Tired of pretending you don't care. Tired of watching other people pass you by while you sit in the same place, recycling the same excuses, spinning the same wheels. You don't need a breakthrough. You need a pattern interrupt. Something that snaps you out of autopilot and reminds you that you're capable of more. And it starts by taking your power back, one small action at a time. That's how the untraining begins. That's how you rebuild your identity. Not by changing everything at once, but by proving daily that you can follow through. You don't need to feel inspired. You don't need to wait for the perfect time. You just need to move, because motion builds clarity, and clarity builds belief. You're not lazy. You're just untrained. But you're not stuck. You're just unpracticed. And the cure is repetition. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I don't feel like it," don't argue. Don't debate with your brain. Just act. Stand up. Start the task. Break the loop. Because every action is a vote for your future self. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you prove something important. That you're in control now. Not your past. Not your habits. You. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to choose differently. Right now. And again tomorrow. and again the next day. That's how change happens. Not in a lightning bolt, but in a flicker that grows stronger the more you feed it. So feed it, protect it, build it. You're not lazy. You're just out of practice. But you can train, and you can rise. One step at a time. Let's be honest. You've tried before. You've told yourself, this time it's different. And for a few days, maybe even a week, it was. Then life got hard. You missed a day. You slipped once. And suddenly, the old voice crept back in. See, you never stick with anything. But here's what no one told you. Failure isn't a dead end. It's a checkpoint. Slipping doesn't erase your progress. It just reveals where the work is still needed. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be persistent. If you fall 100 times, but get up 101, you win. The difference between who you are and who you want to be. It's not talent, not luck, not motivation. It's how many times you're willing to start again. You see, most people quit not because they can't succeed, but because they can't forgive themselves for slipping. You missed a workout? So what? You broke your streak? It happens. You lost focus, got distracted, wasted the whole day? Okay, acknowledge it. Then recommit. That's the skill. Not never falling, but never staying down. You're learning. You're rewiring decades of habits. You're facing discomfort most people avoid their entire lives. So give yourself credit, not for perfection, but for trying again. Because every time you restart, you're building resilience. You're proving that failure doesn't define you. And over time, those restarts become fewer and farther between. Not because things get easier, but because you get stronger. It's like this. Most people want to feel like working before they do the work. But the truth is, action comes first. Feeling follows. You want to feel confident? Start doing the things a confident person does. You want to feel disciplined? Keep showing up even when it sucks. Your brain will fight you at first. It'll scream for comfort, beg for distraction, insist that you rest, not because you need it, but because you're afraid. Afraid of what happens if you actually follow through. Afraid of who you might become. Because if you can do it, then you never really had an excuse, did you? That's the scary part. When you realize you've been in your own way this whole time. But it's also the most freeing thing in the world. Because if it's your fault, it's also your responsibility. And that means it's within your power to change. You don't need a fancy system. You don't need to fix yourself. You just need to become the kind of person who follows through, no matter how small the action. That's where identity is built. Not in one big achievement, but in thousands of tiny decisions no one sees. You don't need to post about it. You don't need validation. You don't even need a plan for the whole year. You just need to win the day, then win the next, and the next. Even if it's messy, even if you're tired, even if your best today is worse than your best yesterday. Show up anyway, because every time you do, you silence the voice that says, you can't. You rewrite the story, and you prove, not to the world, but to yourself, that you're capable of more. And that belief, that quiet confidence that says, I do what I say I will, that's what changes your life. You've waited long enough for the right mood, for the right timing, for someone to tell you it's okay to try again. But no one's coming. This is your responsibility now. And that's a good thing, because you don't need permission to start. You just need to decide. So take the next step, even if it's small. even if it's shaky, even if you're not sure where it leads. Because momentum is built in the doing. Clarity comes from movement, and discipline is just trust, repeated. You're not lazy, you're just untrained. But now you know. And once you know, you can't unknow. The old version of you, the one that avoided, delayed, made excuses, that version didn't have the tools. But you do now. So use them. Build the reps. Stack the wins. Become the person who no longer waits, but creates. Your future self is already watching, hoping you'll finally stop doubting and start moving. Not because it'll be easy, but because it'll be worth it. So let's go. Not tomorrow, not next week, now.